Hey guys, IT Ops guy. So today I wanted to go through just some of the menu options of SolarWinds. We've got about 10 days left in this particular trial, and then I imagine we'll probably spin up another one. But we've been collecting data over the past several days, and so we should have some interesting things to show you. But like I said, the big thing here that I want to do is kind of go through a lot of the different menu options that are available. So this first one here, the summary, is what leads you to this page. And you can modify these pages however you see fit. I added the nodes with problems and the applications with problems and the alerts here. The reason that I add those things to my summary is if there's a problem, I want to know about it right away. In addition to that, I also add my last 25 events. I want to see what's going on within my network. Every time the page refreshes, which it does automatically, this list will update for you. You've got a summary of different items, and if something catches your fancy, you can click on that item. So for example, if I click on the SAM critical, it will take me to all those events that match, and you can see here in a nice, easy to digest list. Again, one of the things that the SolarWinds doesn't have available here is a nice exportable version. There is a printable version, so I assume you could print it to a PDF if that's what you wanted to do. But it'd be really neat to export this stuff to Excel, because when you try to take this and copy it like that, you end up getting this active X box. And you guys know with Excel, you're going to get warnings in that situation. So if you try to copy it to Excel or a Word document, to make it nice and pretty, you end up getting this active X checkbox, which you don't want, and then you've got to spend a bunch of time trying to clean up the data. So this is, again, a good area where I think SolarWinds could definitely improve. They could have a easy to use export feature, which just isn't here, and that's kind of a shame. So let's go back to our summary here and just look at some of the other things that we've got. We've got the last 10 audit events, so you can see what your users are doing. Obviously, I'm ops guy here on the domain called X, and you can see the different things that I have done as well. So I really like the summary page. Again, fully customizable. You can add all kinds of widgets. So whatever you're interested in, if you've got a production box that's just super important to you, you can highlight that box here and get the details about that box. One thing to pay attention to is there are different types of widgets. There are summary widgets, which are about network-wide information. And then there's detail widgets. So really pay close attention to the language underneath the option. That will tell you whether or not it is a summary widget, essentially network-wide, or if it is for one specific node. And you got to pick the right one. Otherwise, you'll end up with information that just doesn't make sense. So let's move on to groups. Groups are one of the most underutilized things within SolarWinds. So we'll give you an example here. I've got a Linux node. I've got a QNAP NAS that I added so we could get syslogs and traps. And then I've got these Windows boxes. But what if I wanted a group of Windows servers? Groups are a great way to do this because you can assign applications to groups. You can assign monitors to groups. You can assign almost anything you want, and using groups is a powerful way to do it. So I'm going to go through here just really quickly and create a group. But the group that we want to create is a dynamic group. So I'm going to call this Windows Servers. And down here within the group, you can set different status properties. We're going to just leave that alone for right now. And I could just add my 4 nodes. It'd be really easy to do, but that doesn't allow for growth. Essentially, anytime I added a new node to the network, I'd have to come back here and add it to that group. I want it to be automatic. And so how am I going to do that? I'm going to add a dynamic query to make that happen. So let's click on that, and let's add a dynamic query. I'm going to call it get Windows servers, and where the object type is a node, and I'm going to add a condition where the machine type contains the word Windows. And you'll see a little drop down box here. Now what I want to be able to do is get any Windows version. So I'm going to put the % after it, and I'm going to put the % in front of it. And that's essentially saying anytime the machine type contains the word Windows, then go ahead and add it. And if I wanted to take it a step further, maybe you're also monitoring your clients, then we can add the word server here. And let's look at what that would produce. So I'm going to click preview, and you can see my 4 nodes that are Windows servers are located down here. So I know I'm getting the information that I want to get. If you had additional conditions, you could add those there. And then just always click preview, make sure you're getting the results that you expect. In a large corporate environment, I've got, hundreds of servers, and I use dynamic queries. That way, if somebody spins up a new server, it automatically gets put into the proper groups. So we've got that there. I'm going to say create group, and now I've got this group called Windows servers, and it's got a dynamic query. And if I click on this group itself, it will take me to the Windows servers, and it kind of groups all of them together and gives me a status about them. And you can see that this group is critical because there are a couple of nodes that are critical, right? So it groups that entire status together. If everything was green, then the entire group would be green. And if I wanted to, I could add details about this group. Maybe I'm interested in the memory, maybe it's CPU. So you could imagine you could have a SQL group. You could have a Windows group, a Linux group. You could have a patching group. We use patching groups within our corporate environment. And that way, when you go to unmanage nodes during a patching cycle, you can just say, I want to unmanage this group. So groups are very, very powerful, and they can be used in conjunction with custom objects. And we could do a whole series of videos just on the power of custom objects and groups. But I want to give you one feasible detail here. So we had created an application, right, to essentially look at Web 01. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go to my SAM settings. And what I want to do is manage application monitors. And I've got one, if I come in here and look at the templates, called Web 01, and it's currently assigned to 3 nodes, okay? Which is absolutely fine. That's not a problem. We can click on these nodes and we can see where it's assigned. But instead of assigning it to these nodes individually, why not assign it to a group? That makes more sense to me. And so it's already assigned to 3 nodes. I can go and clean those up, but I really don't have to. So I'm just going to click Assign to Group. And it's going to say, well, what group do you have? And since we only have one, I'm going to pick that and say Windows Servers. And we'll click Next. And we've got an option here. Did I pass it? Under Advanced, maybe. Assign the template only to the servers in this group. And then down here, auto delete application. Do you want the application monitor resulting in here to be automatically deleted from any nodes that are removed from the group? Yes, you do. No, you don't. So you can choose, right? So let's go back. We're going to say inherit, and we're going to go ahead and assign the group. Now you can see that all 4 of these boxes will now have this Web 01 HTTP monitor. And so that really gives you some flexibility, right? Imagine if you had an application that you installed on all your servers. Maybe it's anti-malware or antivirus or maybe some sort of monitoring application. You could monitor the status of that application using groups. So a very nice way to do it. Maybe I want to monitor WMI on all of my machines. I can do that. And so let's just go through it real quick. So what we're going to do is create a new template. And we're going to call it WMI Service Monitor. Monitors the WMI service. That's called Win Management. And we're going to add a component monitor. This is going to be a Windows Service Monitor. So let's go ahead and add that. And we are going to inherit the credential from the node. The service name that we're going to monitor is WinMGMT, and we can verify that real quick. So if we go get service, oops, we're using command prompt, not PowerShell. Let's switch to PowerShell. And let's do get service where the name is like WinMGMT, and we can see that WMI is there. So Win Management is what we're going to do. We're going to alert if the CPU is greater than 80%, if physical memory is greater than 80, so on and so forth. All these are fine. Let's go ahead and just submit this. Oh, snickerdoodles. Looks like my session expired. Here we go. And we got a new template. So we're going to get to do it again. Monitors, WMI service. I have to be a little quicker this time. Manually add, and we'll say Windows Service. And more quickly inherit an MGMT. And let's go down here and click Save. And I want to continue working just because I want to rename this. And we'll call it WMI Service Monitor. And you could imagine if you were monitoring multiple services, having a nice name will really help you when you go to assign those applications. So let's just put WMI, and we've got this guy. And I may have flip-flopped the description. Let me. Oh, sure. WMI Service Monitor. All right, that makes more sense. Sorry. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to assign it to a group. And of course, I still only have the Windows servers. And we'll say inherit, and assign. And we can see that it's now assigned to this group. And so I can come into this group, right? And now let's imagine that. Well, we don't have to imagine, actually. Let's go to the Solarwinds box. Chances are it may already be there in the applications. It's not there yet, so it's going to take another minute or so. So that's okay. All right. We will wait for that. Let me just refresh real quick and just see if it's popped in there. Not yet. All right, so the next thing that I want to look at here is the app stack environment. I've never been a huge fan of this. It's supposed to give you a really good visual representation of your environment. For me, you know, I've got hundreds of nodes which have hundreds, if not thousands of volumes. I've got not one group, but, 100 groups. And I don't have, 8 applications. I've got thousands that we monitor. And so even if you just kind of look at this and you say, well, just show me the critical things, that'll help narrow it down, or just show me the things that are in warning. Again, it helps narrow it down. But if you just look at this view from the way it starts, it's just way too cluttered, way too much stuff. You can't understand what's going on. So you really need to narrow it down a little bit, and then you can get that visual representation. Then it's okay, right? So let's come over to performance analysis. This has to be one of my favorite things, and you'll see it on all the nodes as well. But let's add a node that's doing some work like the Solarwinds box. And so we've got this node here now, and you can see that we've got different metrics that we can use to pull it, and there's some real-time pulling things, right? So if I wanted to see the CPU usage, and I wanted to see the amount of memory used, and maybe it's pretty much it. Maybe I want to see disk also, right? I could find that information in here. But what's cool is I can say that I am interested just in the last 10 minutes and to start real-time pulling. And it will reach out to the server. You can see this little kind of rocket ship looking thing. It's reaching out to the server and saying, hey, this guy's interested in, not only is he interested, but he wants that information right now. And in my production environment, I can click start real-time polling, and it's pretty quick. But real-time polling is pretty taxing on the box. So it's not something that you want to run all the time. And it's definitely not something that you just want to have up there. You know, you can have certain graphs with the performance analyzer. You can see I've been sitting here with, you know, the real-time polling, and we so far don't have any information. But I can tell you that this works. So let's just chalk that up to my little environment. But let's look at something else, right? So let's get these metrics out of here. And let's pull this metric in. And let's pull in, you know, just a couple of things here. And let's say instead of the last 12 hours, I'm interested in the last 7 days. And there is a bunch more information. My box had to be rebooted today because of updates. That's why when we were looking at the last 12-hour view, I was actually hung and I had to reboot it. So we didn't collect any real data, but if we look at the last 7, you can see that it was collecting data and it was doing stuff. And then, you know, I did updates and it just all went to Hades. But we've got those all fixed now. So I've got this NUC in kind of a headless environment. So I'm not monitoring it actively. Anyway, it's supposed to do the monitoring, right? So if I had emails, you know, set up, it probably would have emailed me and said, hey, we detected a problem, but I don't have that set up right now. So let's continue on through the menu here. So I'm going to go to the alert stack. And this one is actually an interesting deal. I don't use this within my own environment because you can see that it's going to AI Ops. I don't even know if it's going to load for us. We will see. All right, so it did finally load for us, and because we're in a completely new setup, we're essentially greeted with the getting started page, right? So we're going to say next, and it tells you how you can visualize different alerts and how you can identify, you know, root causes, and then essentially how you can resolve things. So alert stack, unfortunately, is disabled because I don't have an alert cluster, and I can set that up in the alert settings. But, you know, with this telling me already that it's resource intensive, I think what we're going to do is leave this disabled, and we'll live to fight that battle another day. So going back to the dashboard, we're currently at the top 10 list. This is one of my favorites. The top 10 is, you know, just a bunch of tables, but the tables are well thought out, and you can move them however you want to move them. That's completely up to you. But what we've got here just from the get-go is a bunch of top 10 lists, right? So you've got top 10 lists for response time, and you can see that, you know, my SolarWinds box has a 4-millisecond response time. Linux has a 3-millisecond response time, but it's got 40% packet loss. My QNAP has a 1-millisecond response time. And then the domain controller, SQL box, and web box all have 0-millisecond response times. But they've got 10% packet loss. So Interesting information. Again, here we can talk about packet loss. This is just a visual view of the chart above. And then average CPU. So we can see that Solarwinds box is working hard, 87%. Domain controller at 38, 24, so on and so forth. It's even getting my QNAP NAS CPU at just 4%. So it's pulling all that information. Memory used, again, we can see all that stuff here. Disk space, so I'm pulling all of that good stuff. And you can see my Linux box, running at 94%. You can see my QNAP, my SolarWinds boxes, Linux box, all that good information. And then if you had wireless access points by client, they would be here. And then you've got a bunch of different components that are running by response time or by statistical data or physical memory or CPU load, so on and so forth. You get the idea. But there's a top 10 for essentially everything. So this is a really quick way to, at a glance, figure out what are my top 10. It's not my top 10 favorite. It's my top 10 problems, really what it is. And you have to ask yourself those critical questions. Does this box need more CPU? Does it need more memory? And what action are you going to take? Or is the box right sized for what it is and you need to add in an exclusion, which, by the way, you could do with a custom object. So multiple ways to skin that cat. But anyway, that's the top 10, one of my favorites by far. So the event summary is actually one of the widgets that we find on our summary page. And it's just pulling down, these are all the different types of events, and it gives you a count, a quantity, essentially. So this is just for today. The data is, again, just for today, and all these things happened in my little test environment. We created a group. We had group members change because we added that dynamic query. We've got a group that's in critical because I restarted my box without, shutting it down the right way. So all these things happen today, and they're all legit. But this summary, in my opinion, probably should not be on the menu because it's already within our summary page. So not super helpful. The THWAC community. I love the THWAC community. It's just a bunch of folks, just like you and me, who want to learn more about SolarWinds, who are doing stuff. But you also get great folks on there who want to share the knowledge that they've gained over the years. And so you can find scripts, you can find alert templates, you can find different events. So if you have SolarWinds, or even if you don't, sign up for THWAC. Understand what problems people are having, how they're fixing it. But the community is very powerful. People just want to help, which is obviously very useful. So THWAC is the SolarWinds community. Highly recommend it. I'm just going to pull up some additional tabs here. So I just went down and middle clicked on each of those menu items. The custom summary is not built. They're trying to give you a visual graph. And so essentially what you would do is configure a resource, and you say, well, I'm interested in a node, and maybe the node that I'm interested in is my SolarWinds box. Maybe that's my mission critical box, And so you would configure this node and go, well, okay, what is it about this node that you actually care about? And so maybe on my SolarWinds box, I care about, maybe I care about, let's see, what do I care about? Let's say top conversations. Let's say that's what I care about for right now. So it gives me another chance to edit some settings. I'm going to say I'm interested in the last 30 days, and I want it every couple of hours, default data to load. Let's go last month, just like that. And you'll see these things pop up here, and you can build out each graph for what you care about. Again, you can do this without, they're trying to show you the power of what SolarWinds can do. It'd be really neat if they pre-populated a node in here, or if you could say I'm always interested in this node and it pre-populated all these tables. Unfortunately, that's not an option, but again, the option's there to kind of build it out yourself. The one that we chose, the top conversations, actually wasn't the best one to choose. If I come in here and I go, well, how about a storage summary? That should at least yield me something. And so let's submit that. That still didn't yield me anything, unfortunately. So anyway, I'm done playing around with that thing for now. Guided curriculum. Solarwinds has a bunch of stuff for you to learn. A lot of it is free, but really good stuff in there. And I mean, if you're going to pay for Solarwinds, you might as well learn what you can from the Success Center. Maps, you can create maps of all your stuff. This used to be something that you did only on the box itself, and they brought it into the web UI. And so essentially, if you had, say a switch, which I don't have here, but you could plug all these things into one switch. And so you could kind of drag them in, and then you would have, a top level switch, and you would say, well, this box connects to this, and so on and so forth. And you could build all these maps out so they're nice and pretty, and you could change all the different variables of them if you don't want it. We've got a long caption in here, but maybe you just want the SW01. You can do that here and just give it a unique value. If we come inside the text, so instead of display name, we could just call it SW01, and you can see that that'll shrink there. So really nice maps. It takes some time to get them built up, but once you do, you are in a really good spot. So let's go ahead and get out of here. I actually didn't save this map, so it's unable to delete it, but that's okay. Next one here is QoE. This is all for a module called VNQM. I don't have that module installed, so we don't see any data. And besides that, we're not monitoring any switches or any SIP trunking, nothing like that. So I just don't have any data here to show you. The cloud summary, if you are in Azure or AWS or Google Cloud, you can hook all that stuff up and you can actually monitor that remote environment, that cloud environment. Some really cool tools in here. Again, I don't have a ton of knowledge on this because we are not cloud people in my production environment, but my understanding is that's what you can do. And then virtualization. So virtualization, this particular environment is Hyper-V, but I'm not monitoring the actual Hyper-V host, the NUC. And so because I'm not monitoring that, I don't get any information about the virtual machines. But if I were monitoring my NUC, what we would see here is a bunch of information on the virtual machines that are running below it. And how much memory, how much CPU, what's assigned to it, what's the traffic look like, all of that stuff comes in, and it does it for VMware, Hyper-V, and Nutanix. So really cool stuff. I like it a lot. But that is the home board. And then if we're going to go and take a look at network real quick, we'll just pop all these open. I'm not going to pop open wireless because we already determined that I don't have wireless stuff here, and I'm not going to do load balancing or vSANs because I don't have those things either. So the NPM summary is just all network focused. You do still have the last 25 events, but again, you would want to add the things here that are important to you. So you would see like things, switches, routers, firewalls, all that kind of stuff. Summary page, right? Like, tell me the health about my network as a whole. That's what this specific page is for. Network top 10. So again, we're talking about network devices, right? Ethernet, NICs, or wireless access points, all that kind of stuff is going to be what's in here. Akin to the node top 10. So, interface traffic, how much data am I pushing through it? Again, we're going to talk about response time, packet loss, even average CPUs in here. I don't believe it should be. That's just me personally. 10 volumes, top 10 volumes. Again, I don't believe it should be in here. This is all about networking stuff. And, I would rather see the CPU on my switches than on my nodes inside the network top 10. Doesn't make sense to me. So anyway, that's just my brain. NetPath. NetPath is awesome. And so you can see that there's a NetPath for Google all set up already. So what NetPath does is it's akin to like a visual trace route. And so let's see our path to Google. And, it's telling us how we graph it out and all this kind of stuff over time, yada, yada, yada. So really kind of neat. And if I change this from last 24 hours, and let's just go back in time on the 9th. So here's what we're looking at. We've got this kind of visual trace route that shows, from our box to this box out to, I go AAA fiber, and then from there, I'm going to take one of these paths, either this path or this path or this path. Or we're going to come down here and go to this Cox and then out this path. Just a bunch of different paths all to get here to the endpoint of Google. So essentially you've got this visual trace route, but what's really neat about it is you can pick the day that you're interested. You can pick the time. You can see I had problems on the 14th. There we go. Let's go back. Still problems. There we go. The 12th was the last time my box was working properly. And this was my path to Google on the 12th. And you can see, from my Solarwinds box to my home router, out my IP to AAA fiber. And then I either went this way or I went this way or I went this way. But either way, any of those ways that I picked and chose, I still ended up out here. But you can pick and you can see, if I went this route, I'm at like 15 milliseconds. If I went a different route, I'm at 10 milliseconds. So anyway, it's nice to have this history available. So that is NetPath. I've got hundreds of NetPaths set up. Your SolarWinds box will tell you it can only do like 25. If you space them far enough apart, it can do more. The nice thing about SolarWinds is it will allow you. So it will tell you, you're at 0 of 25, but yet you've got 25 out of 25, 26 out of 25, 27 out of 25. I'm at like 100 out of 25. So don't worry, it doesn't shut you off. I love that. NetPath, excellent product. I'm very happy it's part of SolarWinds. The network overview is akin to the application overview that we saw earlier. So again, it's a visual representation. You can see if we're looking at interface status, everything's green and happy. If we look at errors and discards or traffic, everything's still, well, I guess I got to hit the refresh button, don't I? So we'll hit that. Let's look at errors and discards today. That might prove something. No, not so much. Interface traffic. So it kind of breaks up this traffic. You can see this purple is like 128 to 256K. This blue is like 32K to 56K. It kind of breaks it up. The gray is essentially less than 32K. So very small amount of traffic, obviously, for the day. And if I'm concerned, mainly about response time, we can refresh on that. And we can see, nope, nothing there. So it's all gray, all green. So again, visual representation, not super helpful to me. It's not horrible, but I'm not going to go through and kind of do all that stuff. It's nice if you've got a really big environment, if you can, quickly spot the different colors. If you're more of a visual person, maybe this is awesome for you. I don't know. For me, I'm just not a huge fan. But I could see certain people who are visual people who are, this makes sense to them. And there's, again, nothing wrong with that. Let's go ahead and look at the last menu items inside the dashboard, and then we're going to call it a night. So let's just go ahead and pull these up. So here's the application summary page. This puts all your applications in one spot. You can kind of drill down through them to see what the problem is. And so you can, drill down, go out, here's my problem on this Solarwinds Orion database is my top indexes for the database. And you can get a little status if you hover over it, which is nice. You've got the application health. This is one of my favorite widgets. I use this all the time when I'm building out applications that are network-wide. I use the application health overview. You can tie it down to the entire network or an individual group or multiple groups or multiple nodes, or there's just a million different options. But I like this page because it really quickly tells me which applications are not running the way I would expect them to run. Essentially, I want green stuff, and in order to get green stuff, I either A, need to go and determine and fix the application, or I need to modify the thresholds to a more realistic value. So one of those two things is going to happen, and it just depends on my environment. So here you can see I haven't changed anything because I want to get the alerts. I want to show you what SolarWinds can do. And so we've just accepted the default values on everything. This Web 01 HTTP monitor, this is the one that we had built out, assigned to a group, and created this custom view. And you can see that it's now assigned to 4 nodes instead of 3. If I click on this 4, it'll tell me the 4 nodes it's assigned to, which is every single Windows box that we have. So if we go and we look at all these Windows boxes, we will see that our Web 01 HTTP monitor is there. Our WMI service monitor is also on these nodes because we assign them to the group. So this SolarWinds box here has the HTTP monitor and the WMI service monitor, and you can see that it's up and running. And just to take a really quick detour, I love monitoring services because what I can do is get all the information for each individual component. So if I had multiple services that I was monitoring, I would see all of them there and how much CPU and memory that each one takes up. Now we don't have a ton of history here because we just started monitoring the thing. But we can see, there's a couple of polls there, one at 9, one at 9:30. We can see what that is. So, and you can zoom into all these charts. You probably just saw that, right? So we can come down here and zoom in, and we can see there's a couple polls there. So we were at 46.23 meg, now we're 46.11, so it changes over time as we pull. Anyway, we're done with that. The Exchange summary, again, you can get tons of information about Exchange if you are an on-prem customer. We don't have it here, so we're just going to move on. The SQL Server application summary. So this is taking all my SQL servers. I've got my SQL 01 box, which is doing absolutely nothing. And then we've got the SolarWinds box, which is running SQL Express on it. And you can see we got a memory problem. And under all databases, we still have that top index issue. So again, a couple of known issues, but that's okay. We want to show you what SolarWinds can do and what the power is of it. So we're not going to fix those things. We're going to leave those things, but it would be good to show you how to tune them down the road. IIS is the exact same thing, but for IIS, Internet Information Services. So we've got that on Web 01. Again, that box is doing essentially nothing. And then on the SolarWinds box, the SolarWinds website that we are using has IIS installed on it, and we can see all those deals here, right? And if we wanted to, we could dial all the way into the connections and click on current connections, and that will give us the statistic. And again, you've got some expert knowledge, and you can zoom in and all that fun stuff that that you can do inside the charts. Last one here is Windows Application Summary. You can see that this is sample data, so not super helpful. If you wanted to, you'd have to come in here and customize this page. And so you'd have to build this out with the applications that are important to you. Linux Application Summary, exact same deal, except for Linux boxes. And last but not least, the APM page. So I don't have App Optics on here, so I don't have a cloud token, so we won't be playing with this today. But that is it for my dashboards. Look for future videos on alerts. We'll build some reports. We'll do some other things. But you guys tell me, what are you interested in? You know, I can make really simple videos, short, if you're looking just to like add a node, delete a node, really simple things, and we'll do that. Those components have been part of larger videos, but if you're looking for little bite-sized chunks, let me know. I do not mind making short videos. I hate the sound of my own voice, so I'm happy to make short little, 2, 3, 4, 5-minute videos. If that's going to work out better for you. So just let me know down in the comments section. I appreciate you guys. We'll talk to you later.